I literally just finished putting my lip color on, so perfect timing. So I'm very happy that I hopped into kind of the tail end of this because yeah, this rolls in beautifully to what I wanted to chat with today. And I wanted today's class to be less me doing a lot of talking and more a dialogue and a conversation with you guys. Heard one of you already saying you've got some ideas. Well, let's hear some of these ideas, let's kick some things around, and let's use this kind of as a workshop time space to really kind of flesh out your quests. um, I am a color paragon in the Celestial Kingdom. Where my paragon was gotten for kind of more on-field service than for roleplay and characterizations. That's still a huge important part for me and a big push that I try to get for is CK is known very much to be a stick jock kingdom where it's let's just bash the hell out of everything. Um, and so I want to try to remind them that they got into LARPing and they got into Amtgard because of the story, because of, the fact that they could be a lord or a samurai or an elf or a troll or any of those things. So, it's just by finding those little bits of color in a quest line in a battle game that can really kind of make that game something more than just I hit a bunch of people with Nerf swords. So feel free to unmute your mic and to have a conversation with me. Like I said, I don't want this to be just me doing all the talking. And I'm looking off to the side because I pulled up my rule book and I'm trying to find what page the battle games are on again, just so that I can kind of use those to help me guide things. Let's see. Oh, combat rules, page 6. Here. Where's page 6? What page? That's 7, 6. They've completely, I don't know what's up with the table of contents not giving me the right page numbers. Here we go. Okay, well, hopefully I can find it sometime soon because I'm not locating it because I don't read the rule book very often. Okay, so let's talk. First off, what color classes is. It's usually seen as just kind of a catch-all. Oh, you don't fight, so go be color. But it can be more than that. Color class can be anyone that brings any kind of life and beauty and color to the game. It makes it more than just hitting each other with sticks. So, the fighter that's got really on point garb is adding color to the game. So when you're building your quests and when you're building your battle games, it's all about looking for those moments that you can interject those things and you can kind of really support them. With those players that are need a bit more inclusivity. I remember years ago there was one player that was paralyzed waist down and would play in his wheelchair. And, it was a quick modification to the rules, to hit locations. Um, you know, if you get within 5 feet of him, then he will declare himself dead. You don't have to physically hit him. That said, missiles that hit him in the legs because he can't feel it, or the wheels, or any part of that chair don't count. It's like it's a big armored tank. And so really the only place that you could hit him were his arms and like this upper part of his chest, because he had his catheter bags and things down here, and he fashioned himself some like lap armor that he would put over the armrest portion of his wheelchair so that it would protect those more delicate places where the catheters went in and things. And he was a spell ball wizard. He wasn't the most articulate, so he didn't do a lot of verbals. So he would just load up with spell balls, and he put saddlebags on his wheelchair, and he had arms for days, and would just chunk fireballs across the field and wreck teams. He had his cool little wizard hat. He didn't have a staff. He doesn't need a walking stick. He just rolls around everywhere. but it's looking for those, you want to get that color on the field, but they have a physical limitation or something. They're, maybe small, younger, you had mentioned, having some children that were just too young to play, to being out on the field. And so making those adjustments is a great way to include them. Colors on the field can take the place of in-game objects. So, you have a non-combatant that, I don't want to fight, but I don't mind being in the thick of things. I don't mind taking the risk of, an arrow getting lobbed at me and accidentally getting hit. Maybe I'm mobile enough to, excuse me, maybe I'm mobile enough that, if I see some fighting roll my way, I can kind of back up and just keep myself safe enough on my own without, seriously needing to be babysat, or watched out for. Those are great. That you had mentioned quests where you had, people who were captured. That would be a great, like if you've got, a special NPC, a special person in the captors. Maybe one of the captives was, the king or queen or visiting monarch from a different kingdom, or your own monarch or something, and so you have them physically sitting there where the players can see them, and it adds that extra dimension of, if we don't find a way to solve this, if we don't win the game, then this monarch, this lady, this physical person is going to get shattered for X amount of time. And that's a great way to kind of to bring that all back to life and bring that in. So capture the flag or a heavy object game. Insert people. Here are the battle game text I was looking for. Battle game examples. Capture the flag, very heavy object. Ring the bell. Ring the bell game type, where the teams have to go into enemy territory, hit some sort of object, and that scores them a point. You can have people physically hold the shield up. It gets a little boring for the non-combat player to sit there and hold the shield and then get thwacked. But maybe instead of hitting them, it's you have to bring them spirit stones because they're in the center of a barrier circle, and so you have to bring them these stones, and they're an avatar from your team or something, and when you release them, then it sends out a pulse and it wipes the other team, basically doing a reset. And so those keys that you're bringing to them to unlock that rune circle that they're behind are your points. And when they get free and wipe the field, they've won that particular match. And then you can play, best of 3, especially if you've got a lot of speedy people running around playing, and those points go quickly. I'm looking at the game types. Castle defense. Castle defense game. One team defend, two teams attack, or a certain number of teams attack. This is the, you've got to go in and capture someone. And so you're combining the castle defense and either capture the flag or a very heavy object idea with having someone in there that they're going in to capture and then bringing out and escorting out. Yep, I need a minute to reset. So I'll take questions, comments, especially those of you who said you were writing quests. I really want to focus on that. And again, make this workshoppy. So I tossed out some ideas, but let's hear from you guys. Pop on mics. what were you working on? What was the idea that you had? How can we get some non-combat color in there for you guys? Oh,
I just
Hubbard,
want,
thank you. Sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
I just wanted to iterate the whole special players. You mentioned the gentleman in the wheelchair, and I thought that was fantastic. And I mentioned we had a special ed player too. He had tunnel vision, so you were only allowed to attack him from the front. Nothing else counted, and he had a birth defect arm, so it didn't work. So he only could use a single sword from his left hand, and so that bad arm was not to be hit, and he was given many-legged from the monster rulebook to account for that bad arm. One time he actually walked on the field using his blind cane to a tournament, and there were some people from out of town who didn't know him, and they're like, "The blind guy's playing?" And he laughed it off, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm tunnel vision. I can see just fine right ahead." And so we accommodated him, and that was great for him. For me personally, I have allergy, I have asthma attacks. So if it comes down to it and I'm running too much and I need to stop and I can take and take my inhaler, they allow me to say emergency out of game and I step to the side and I take a breather, take my inhaler, wait until it's like cleared field and then I return to my team. And I never abuse that either.
Yeah, my husband is asthmatic too, so yeah, right there with you with the take a pause, step off, inhale, and that's honor on the field to not use that to gain field
Yep,
advantage to sit and
yep.
wait. Yeah, kudos.
Because there might be some people who would, you
Yeah,
know? I don't know
and
any personally, but you never know.
sad to say, I know a few that would probably use it for field advantage. Um,
Sad
yeah,
but
with
true.
yeah, very sad. So with them, it's just all about giving them the stink eye and being like, really, dude, that's you just made the game not fun. We don't want to play with you right now.
Yeah. If I was a Reeve and I saw that happen, I'd kick that person off field, off the out of that game. Because that's not right. It's not sportsmanship, it's not legal,
Yeah.
it's not, moral, appropriate. So that's something that the Reeves need to keep an eye on too. Be
Hmm.
aware of.
And if you're looking for your non-color classes to, do field service,
Yeah.
marshaling is a great way, especially if
Yeah.
you're wanting to start to reef, but you're worried about how to start or having that responsibility of calling all the shots in the game. Marshaling, well, when I started at 12, that's what I did was marshal.
Yeah.
I would get told this is your boundary, and anyone who passes this little line, you get to call them dead. And I was like, oh, cool. You
Yeah, we
know,
have kids like that too a couple of times. We make use of what we have. If we
Mhm.
happen to have a kid who's too young to play, we give them a gold sash and say, "Here, you keep count," because the kid is old enough to keep count of score.
Yes, yes,
And it puts them in the game and it makes them all excited and they learn.
yeah, and they'll want to play. And my daughter or my son, excuse me, um, started playing with me at like 2 or 3. I mean, just as soon as he was old enough,
Fanola.
yeah, pick up a sword and a little baby shield. And my husband, he was really big into fairies, Tinkerbell, and everything at that time. So we made him a fairy sword and a fairy shield. And Childs and I counted as one player for team picks. And I would take the field because,
Yep.
I was Mama Bear and I was going to protect my baby. And, I just basically ran around with my child, made sure that they didn't get hurt and that people saw there was a little next to me. But as they got older, they started taking the field on their own. And by about 10, they would take battlefields completely on their own, started picking their own class to play, wasn't just random whatever, but using abilities, entering in kingdom, sword tournaments. And it's because by 10 years old, they were as tall as I was and much stronger. So,
Yeah,
when
we
you're
got a
looking,
girl like that. We got the daughter of one of our players like that. She's called Little Bug, but she ain't so little no more.
mhm,
She's
yes,
almost a full-fledged scout at this point,
yeah.
and
So when
she
you
takes hits. She takes hits just like everybody else.
Yep, yep. And so when you're just looking at your littles, take that kind of, personal size and strength into account, with, of course, parental consent and parental understanding and parental involvement. Both child, myself, and my husband have both been very active in this LARP since we were, 12, 13 years old. So, I mean, this is what we do. So there was never a time when that child was ever out at an event without mom,
Right, and
dad,
we yeah,
uncle.
yeah. We insist on that all too. Very
Mhm.
strict about the kids' rules. Some parents are there. For the most part, all the kids we have in Valhalla are all kids of current players anyway. The
Yeah,
parents are there, and sometimes they bring both spouses are there even to keep an eye on them.
yeah. Um, Comment from, I'm just kind of reading this chat right now. Bonnie had mentioned that some of the players use wheelchairs, um, and love to have some way to participate while wheelchair bound. So the wizard that I had referenced kind of early on in the conversation, he took the character name of Sherman von Abrams because we pictured him in a steampunk, steam and magic style tank chair, and that was part of the he was like this kind of half man half automaton rolling around on the field. um so just looking at that rules of play with that wheelchair and looking at the physical capabilities of the wheelchair, to figure out how you can kind of morph those rules and tweak them ever so slightly, in order to best facilitate their inclusion in a full class battle game of some kind, in a way that they feel accommodated, but they don't feel like it was a huge special thing to them and that they're any different from any other player, because they already feel different by the fact that you know they're in a chair and no one else is. Every other part of their life is likely already defined by what everyone else terms as a disability, where to them, this is just how they live. And so, any way that you can tweak the rule to make it so that way they can be included to the fullest extent, not be excluded with any part of the game, in a way that really helps them feel like they're just like everyone else. Um, but it still makes the rules tailor fit them. And I wish I could give some examples on what you could do in the V8 rules to make that happen. I'm not as well versed with the V8 rules as I was in my younger days with, again, I think it was a V5 or V6 variant. I was from a LARP that split off from AmpGuard in the late 80s, early 90s. So 89, 1990-ish, and I started in 1992. So the rules had diverged from when it split off into this other LARP. Um, but I didn't know what AmpGuard was at the time, other than it was spoken about pretty harshly in the LARPs circles that I was in. So I didn't really mess with it. So I would, you know, push Gia Reeves and be like, hey, how can we make accommodations? Um, I know that in the couple of game types where that would be considered heavy, very heavy object in the current rule set, because we did play those kinds of games. They just didn't call them that. But in a very heavy object rule set with someone in a wheelchair, you can make a special accommodation to that for them and say, if the physical object can somehow be set on their lap or put on a holder or somehow affixed to the chair and drug behind them without damage to the chair, to them as a person, or to the object that is being somehow manipulated, that instead of it requiring two people to carry, it only requires them. So you have to imagine they're almost like in a chariot kind of thing. Now, they would not have been able to load it onto themselves by themselves, and nor would they be able to offload it by themselves, generally speaking, especially if they have to tie it to the back of their chair or set it onto their lap or something, and it's inconvenient for them to be able to get out, or they're not physically able to get out of their chair. Um, and so that fulfills the two-person criteria of the very heavy object game style. Um, so that's a way that you can modify those rules. And everyone's like, you have to be by the rules, and they want to follow the letter of the rules, but remember that these rules are in service to the enjoyment of the game. And so if you need to take these rules and just tweak them ever so slightly for a particular game scenario or a particular day for a particular player to make sure everyone feels included, I don't see why you can't do it on that particular day. Suddenly all the Reeves come out and start hitting on me. Sorry. Like bad hitting on that. Okay. Anyway. Whipsy shared a story when she first started out being too young to play. She was a field page for the now Paragon archer Michelle. She'd sprint after the arrows and return them so that her quiver wasn't ever empty. I was part of a battle game even though I was too young to fight, and that was amazing. And that's how I got a Jovius and a warrior before I was able to fight in Amtgard. Yeah, totally. Having the smalls, for me, smalls is anyone too young to play or fight in Amtgard. Um, Going out and doing field retrieving, yeah, that's totally a great way to make use of it. And especially if that paragon, that now Paragon archer, um, had specific colors that they wore, and they went about creating a small, quick little tabard of their colors. Just the primary color blocked, two pieces of fabric, or one side one color, the other side the other. Maybe quick stencil with acrylic paint, really rough, you know, silhouette of their sigil. So that way they're easily visible and recognizable as, hey, that little person belongs to so and so. Helping them gather arrows. Thank you for those stories. Who was making the quest? Who said they had a bunch of ideas for their quest? Who was that?
I have a few, but they're really mismatched and disconnected right now.
Okay.
It was something along the lines of Legend of Zelda meets Amtgard.
Like what?
Because that's what I was into, the theme-wise, in my life. That's all. That's like I'm addicted to watching Breath of the Wild. I can't play it. I don't have the system. But I love watching other people play it, and I fell in love with it. So of course I went ahead and made the champion tunic, and then I'm thinking, how do I incorporate this into a quest?
Okay. So I think that is more of a conversation of how to write quests.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
and I don't
I've,
think that
yeah,
I'm the best qualified for that kind of
don't worry about
advice.
it. I've written
um,
quests before. I know how to do it.
okay, good.
It's just taking it to the next step, and it's not been a rush or anything. It's like I don't want to do this one online. This will be more fun in person, so I'm gonna wait.
Yeah, and this gives you time to tweak it. Okay, so putting color in, since now you have basically all the time in the world to get this thing ready,
Yeah,
because there isn't a huge deadline. We're not meeting face to face for a while. Think about set dressing. Is there a particular park that looks the location? Um, think about times of day. Maybe maybe this is a dawn quest, and really part of that sense of timing is the fact that it runs pre-dawn to mid-morning. I
No,
understand I
no,
say that,
it's
and
not pre-dawn quest. I promise you that. I
yeah, and
can't.
asking starters to do anything pre-dawn is ludicrous, but
The only
uh,
time I would do a pre-dawn quest is if it was at an event and someone got my sorry ass out of bed well early enough because I am
right.
not a morning person.
Or maybe there's a sunset quest,
Yeah.
that whole, from Little Mermaid, you have to get him to kiss you before the sun sets on the third day, and that's part of the story. So you have to complete this thing by the time the sun sets, and this is the third day, maybe it was, the first day was
Legend
the
of
king.
Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Or no,
Mhm.
Majora's Mask. Majora's
Exactly,
Mask. Yes.
those kinds of things.
Dawn
And
of third day type thing, yeah.
yeah, at that point, that becomes a really easy way to have kind of a game timer effect happen where you're not in control of it. I've seen a lot of quests go south, excuse me, really quickly because um one player starts arguing or and just delays all the time, and whereas this is like, look, I can't pause the clock, and I'm not going to pause the clock because I cannot tell the sun to stop setting. Sorry, not
I think I've
not
been lucky.
godlike
I've never
powers.
had people like that. I did
Yeah.
see a quest. I did see one quest where one of the players took the game object that they were after and said, "See ya," and he teleported out of there at the very end.
Oh my goodness.
I followed along in that quest and took pictures, and then the quest master looked at me and said, "Here, you stand here and hold your hands out. You can be a pillar." I said, "Okay," or a statue. I said, "Okay."
Okay. I remember there was one quest. It was a combination fighting and puzzles and things. It was the knighting of one of my dear friends. And he decided that he wanted to run the battle game for his event. Um, and he made a scavenger hunt, and you had to collect all of his accoutrements. He had been traveling to the kingdom seat in order to get knighted. He was coming from his provincial lands off from far away, and he got attacked by bandits, and his gear got scattered to the winds, and goblins found it, and some of the bandits had some pieces, and he had a list as this is all the things that went missing, please return them. And so the entire weekend was all of the quest battles. Was you'd find his tabard, or you'd find the spurs, or you would find the chain, or you would find all these other things, a boot, um his jacket, his cloak, the right glove. He has his left glove, but he doesn't have his right glove. And one of the last items was um his squire's belt, and no one could find it. They'd defeated the Minotaur that he had planned for them, the Goblin Tribe, the human raiders, the trolls, the everything, and that was the last piece. And I'm sitting there, I hadn't got anything because I'm not the best fighter in the world, and so I was just kind of sitting on the fence, and I'd been trying to help people puzzle out where things were, and do the kind of the thinky puzzle, not the fighty puzzles.
Mhm.
And he also role played his own butler. And so his butler character, like imagine the black tuxedo with the gloves and the little white towel over his hand, butler, um, had been walking around um, all day. And he kind of stopped over and was like, "Can I get you anything? Yeah, Miss Catrysa." And, I'm going, he's going to offer me something to drink or a snack or something. No, Jeeves, I need Squire Admiral Squire's belt. Like, that's, if you could bring me anything, that's what I want you to bring me. And he from behind the towel inside the jacket, he pulled out the rolled up squire's belt and then broke character and was like, "Congratulations, you're the only one to remember that Jeeves' only power is he will get you anything that you need." I was like, you know, so and that's the tiniest bit of color is, that those spawned all of the quest battles for that entire weekend. Um, he even went so far as had some of those items be what, like the little things, like the sock, the glove, a cufflink. You would win those items at the ditch field. When you lifed out the other team, the one representative from the winning team would get to go and pick up an item from the table of these are all the scattered bits and pieces and odds and ends, and they got to collect it. The people manning the table um, wouldn't let them take it onto the field, because then you'd have all these items that you're trying to carry while ditching, and that wasn't conducive. Um, but they, write down your name, go, okay, you took this item. And so they take that item off the table. And once you ran out of items on the table, that was it. You could keep ditching, but now you wouldn't get any more items because all of those things got rescued. And it was, basically the idea of the story behind it was that it was this chaotic battlefield and people were all fighting, free for all over this. I think he was a count at the time. This count's trunk of high-end expensive clothing. I got the count's underwear, kind of. It's very silly, but it was fun.
Please tell me you got an award for that quest.
Well, I mean, he was being knighted for service.
Right.
So you kind of, how do you award beyond that? No, he was knighted for service, and then the quest was mentioned, and I knew that he was putting it together because he had been calling me on the phone, for the months leading up to the event, and just kind of running ideas behind past me and going, what kinds of things should I put? The trunk of random clothes at the ditch battle was part of the conversation that I was like, what if you just say that the trunk fell off of the carriage and spilled, and now they're strewn over the battlefields, and you're awarding, a copper piece for every returned item. Um, so that was how he took and morphed that conversation into something that would be playable in the field by having those items out on the table and having people come up when they won the ditch battle to get their little reward and get marked down for the scavenger hunt item. Next class isn't until 2. Don't feel constrained to wrap up at 1. Okay, great. So Raj was commenting that she needs to run off for a little bit. There's a lunch break after this. I'm watching the clock. We've got about another 30 minutes of chatty time. But there is a lunch break. And so in about 30 minutes, you will wander off, go get some food. If you want to stay and keep chatting, we definitely can. But the next class is at 2. So if we're still chatting when it gets close to 2 o'clock your time, I'll let y'all know. But as soon as it becomes 1 o'clock your time, I'll check to see if my family's up and about and needing me to disappear. But so far, we're still good. Yes, we can do all
You're
the
right,
color
Bonnie.
chatting.
All the color chatting.
Yes. My favorite color is hyperactive radioactive lime green. Acid lime green.
Because you're evil?
Because it's a bright color? I don't know.
So, like the color of Glenlock's text name there?
Yes.
It's a very bright color.
Text name. That's my favorite color green. Yes, lime green, Disney evil. But yeah.
There you go. Now you can change your color to that.
Yay! No, I'm not gonna change my colors. I think I remember that hex code because I used to the early days of the internet when you had to actually HTML code your own
Oh God, I
thing.
had an entire class about that in high school.
Yep, same. And my website was that color background with white text. It was obnoxious.
Teacher hated me. I don't know why.
Can't imagine. Um. Anyway, so yeah. So okay. So we're going back to your quest idea. So thinking about um physical location, thinking about physical time, that sunset timer, um, so that way no one can complain, and if they start to waste their time, you're like, look, I can't control the game clock. The game clock does not stop on this, so you got to get it done. You got to figure out. You got to work cooperatively. You can't argue with each other because that's you know detrimental. That's not helpful to your cause. Um, and then thinking about the NPCs, the major NPCs that you want portrayed. So not just fighting NPCs, oh, I need them to fight a Minotaur, I need them to fight a Hydra, I want them to fight a vampire or a Lich or whatever, and getting costuming and garb for those. But finding the right player, you're almost like a casting director in a small movie. Finding the right player to bring that character concept to life and making sure that they're feeling not only comfortable and willing to play the character, but like that lich that ended up wanting to keep that character
Yeah.
and make it his own. Finding someone who will do that with it and giving them enough lead time and enough concept about their character so that way they can put in time to, maybe they want to do an accent character, or they want to make custom garb or custom weapons or something for this character. They need time to create all of those items.
The only thing I gave him was, dude, I need you to play a Lich Captain. I have a box for you. You make it your own. Have fun with it. And that's exactly what he did. And I gave him like 3 weeks notice. And I gave him the box the day of, and he just played it up. It's hilarious. He brought most of his own stuff. I asked him if he needed anything. He said no, I got everything. And it turned out beautiful.
Yep. Giving your NPCs that freedom really gives them ownership and really makes it beyond your expectations. So yes, just like that.
I knew he would do it really well too, because he's a very skinny guy to begin with. So he definitely plays a Lich really well or a skeleton. And then he's just a role player. He just loves to do different ones, and he had a lot of fun with that. Actually, I think I saw a picture of him from that day. Actually, let me see if I can find it.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Pop it in the chat for us.
Yeah.
And then don't just focus on your combat NPCs, because you can definitely have non-combat color class NPCs. You can have an apothecary. This is someone who, if you go into the trinkets and minor magic items section in your rule book, handles all the potions and scrolls. And so you tell them, hey, I want you to play an apothecary. You're basically a little shop that, if you remember, was it Diablo 1, Diablo 2, or Gauntlet? It was one video game where you're running around and then suddenly this little like elf gnome thing with a red bag would appear on the screen, and then you would hit it and it would go and like little potions and scrolls would kind of rain out as you hit it, and after you hit it enough it would finally get mad and run away, and then you would pick up all the loot that it dropped. So it's basically that concept, but you don't hit them in order to make them drop the potions. You can set some sort of parameters of interaction. So if you've got in-game currency, yeah, the treasure goblins from Diablo. Thank you, Bonnie. If you've got some sort of in-game currency system, then perhaps you tell them that here's a price list, you accept the in-game currency, and you prep your players ahead of time, definitely several weeks notice. You use marketing strategy and you give them minimum of 5 touches in the 5 days leading up to the event. Reminders are what we call these touches, that they should bring all of their in-game currency. And then leading up to that, leading up to that game, you embed ways for them to earn currency. My park had done in-game currency and would give 1 coin just for showing up for the day. So you showed up to a park day, here's your coin. And when they first got rolled out, when you first signed in, you would get a little money pouch. So a money pouch with a couple coins in it, and then every week that you showed up, it was an extra coin. And then we would host extra fighter practices and craft days on different days, and the monarch and the officers would award a coin for showing up to those. So, our normal Saturday park day, and then fighters practice on a Tuesday night. Well, the officer with the coins would go to fighter practice and just sit there. And when you show up for fighter practice, she would give you an extra coin. And then she hosted the craft night. And so when you came over to her house to work on a sword or a shield with her husband, or tunics or weapon covers, or garb with her, or painting or music with me, you would get a coin. So you could earn a bunch of coins, and then different battle games throughout the day would be, winning team would get this chest of X amount of gold coins, split up however you want. And so that way, the day of, when you have the apothecary shop open for business, then the players have enough spending money that then they can purchase those things out of the shop. Those things get used on the field. You definitely talk with your champion and your GMR to make sure that they don't throw off the balance of any particular game. And then you set your prices from there. You can even have an enchanter's shop. So, ask someone who's really familiar with your wizard class, your healer class, your druid class, any of the classes that have a lot of heavy enchantments, to sit and create a price list for enchantments, and then they can go and they can purchase enchantments for themselves for the game. Hey, I want suddenly my age is showing and I don't know all the enchantments in V8, so I'm going to be using my V6 commons. You've got stone skins and bark skins and blessings and promisals and proflame and all these other enchantments that you can purchase, and depending on the level, the price goes up, just like in a D&D rulebook. So you can, those are definitely other NPCs that you can use to color your game. That if you know that your monsters are really kind of overpowered and you meant for them to be overpowered, you have those available so that the players can go and get these buffs in order to help make it so that way they can best defeat your monsters and things. And I would definitely have that in your back pocket, even for a normal quest day, and be ready to pull that out quickly in case you notice, like, oh, I planned this really awesome quest, and it's meant for 15 people, but only 6 showed up, and the 6 that showed up aren't my top tier fighters. They aren't my top tier wizards or bards or druids. They're gonna get posed by this thing, and instead of toning my monster down, you then open up an apothecary or enchanter shop or something, so that way they can get some buffs that last just for that game, in a way that suits them and their playstyle, that then they can use to have a better chance of defeating their monster. And then lastly, think about props. Like the story that I told at the previous session about the treasure chest and the potion bottles. Instead of having the potion bottles sealed, you can, at least in the stores in my area, they have little soda bottles that are like 2-ounce soda bottles. They're like this tall. And I've purchased them before. They're like 25 cents US a bottle, so they're not too expensive for me. And so I remember I dropped like $5 and I got 20 of them. And I went to my rule book and I pulled all the different potions and I color coded the potions. So healing was red, and refresh was blue, and something else was the yellow, and something else was the orange, and the green, and the purple, whatever. And then I printed out labels, and I tore off the labels of the soda, and I put my labels on there. And I kept the labels of the soda, and I put them out where people could see so that they could look over those labels for any potential food allergies or concerns. And I said, you can drink these potions, but if I take them home after today, I'm going to seal them so they are no longer drinkable. But for today, since I just purchased them a few days ago, and I've kept them in a climate controlled space, they're safe to drink. But after this, I can't guarantee that I'm not going to remember to take them out of the trunk of my car. And Texas, with the 40 degrees Celsius summers, I can't guarantee that those things are going to stay good to drink for any length of time in my possession after this weekend. So, if they took them home, then the onus was on them to keep it safe for them to drink and no longer on me. So if they decided not to drink their potion that day, but save it for the next weekend, and they didn't store it properly, and then they drank it and they got sick, that was their problem and not my problem because I handed it over to them. So, doing drinkable potions. Now mine were labeled. Um, is always a nice kind of extra ambiance. If you're doing drinkable potions, I would definitely make sure that you are using store bought bottles of some kind, and that they are pre sealed. So the little tiny water bottles would be great. And then you just label them, and they're all clear, but they're all water. I use the little baby sodas, which probably was not the best for dehydration. What was I thinking? But get the little Chubbs waters, they're like 4 ounces of water. Um, and label those, different potions. I'd color code the label instead of the liquid, and that way the top stays sealed, and so that way everyone knows that they're safe to drink, and it's a one-use thing, and you're promoting hydration and keeping everyone, with enough liquid in their body, especially if it's a hot day, which happens like what twice a year for you guys, um, or you just live in a hot climate, which is all of me all the time. Um, that's I think if I ever ran a potions quest again, that would be the one thing that I would be I would, instead of using the mini sodas, I would use the mini water, and I would color code the label on the water to have me tell everyone what it was doing, so that it's just flat water, and let them drink it. Because it's always fun to actually drink the potion as opposed to just kind of miming it the way that my friends did years ago. Um, so yeah, props from potions to trinkets to scrolls, actually getting slips of paper. If you've got access to a printer, for making the little scrolls, printing them out so that they look like cool things, rolling them up, putting little rubber bands on them, um, so they look like scrolls is a great way to add just that depth of color. Remember that color isn't just, oh, you don't fight, you don't participate in the battle games, you just sit over there and you look pretty. And guilty for having told people that was all color did years ago.
I want to change that stigma.
Yeah. And I'm guilty. I fully admit I'm guilty of having carried that stigma and having promoted that stigma and having used that to define what a color class was years ago. So guilty. But remember that by the rulebook, color is anything that brings life and vibrancy to our game. So a good set of garb. The monster class is this beautiful picture that Aksaber put up with the lich and the mask and the skeleton is amazing. And all of that is color. So, you know, making
She does her own makeup.
Yeah.
She did the makeup for everyone, for all the NPCs, not just herself, too.
I hope she got a rose for that.
I don't remember. But that was like, oh my God, we're talking like 4 or 5 years ago now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ask her if she ever did get a rose for that, if she remembers, maybe go back through her orc and see if
Yeah.
there's list of it. And if not, then
Not the first time either, so maybe she should get it.
yes. If she hasn't, then she should, because, having done theater and having done theater makeup where you're churning out makeup for, half a dozen people and you're on a very limited time frame, and everyone's rushed and they have to get, or they have partial costume on, or they have to finish getting their costume on, and then they have to hoof it a quarter mile to their location.
Yeah.
Like, that's challenging. And if you can,
We had four NPC fighters and then 3 non-combatants for the slaves, and she did their makeup too. Their makeup mostly consisted of fake tattoos.
yeah, I would definitely, all of that is color,
Yeah.
and if you've got a player that just consistently is promoting that, pushing that, exemplifying that, bringing to life of something, then they are playing the color class. Even maybe they're playing bard. You
Yeah.
know, I if they play bard, but they take their musical instrument out and they go into to
Hashtag
not
whimsy.
called it's not called Song of Safe Passage anymore. I don't know what it's called, but it's the one where they can't attack you.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
called Song of Safe Passage when I played Bard 20 years ago. Song of Visit is what it's called. Okay. So
Yes.
if
Yeah.
when they're doing Song of Visit, they bust out their instrument and start performing, that they have just made that cross from playing Bard to being an active on the field color class, because they're not, yes, they're personifying Bard, but you could just go Song of Visit, Song of Visit, Song of Visit. Don't fight
That would
me.
be me, yeah. That'd be
Which,
me because I can't play an instrument.
yeah. Well,
But,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Let me preface the bard thing. My husband is a paragon bard, um, and he exemplifies bard. He does not play an instrument. He does not sing. And I had been pushing for that paragon bard, and the feedback that I finally was getting was he can't be a bard. He doesn't perform musically. And I went, that's a
Mm.
troubadour. That's, the 15th, 16th century idea in, Europe of what a minstrel bard should be. He's a ninth century Viking skald bard. He's a warrior bard. He's going to go out there, he's going to kick ass on the field. And then afterwards, he's going to sit down with a beer in his hand around a campfire and tell stories of how badass everyone was and get everyone talking about what they did and glorify the battle and the fight with story afterwards.
He's a saga writer.
That's still bardic. That is
Yes, I
still what
agree.
it means to be a bard. And so just because he doesn't fit your stereotypical definition of a troubadour minstrel bard doesn't mean he's not a bard. And so we finally got him recognized, and he's a paragon bard, but the title is Scold. He's the Scold now, as in the Viking warrior bard, storyteller, saga
That makes
writer.
him happy. That's what's important.
Yeah, no, he was totally stoked about that award. He also is a master reeve, which I think the current rule set calls Walker in the Middle now.
Yeah.
But I talked to the monarch and I was like, look, we old. He's gonna be like Walker in the Middle, yay! But if you say Paragon Reeve, he's gonna be like, I am all into that. So that award says both. Anyway, but yeah, that's my spiel, I guess, on taking just a normal, even a normal model game, and infusing it with color and with life. And it doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be big. It can just be as simple as they role played their death, um, they took an arrow and managed to catch it against their chest and go, oh, it hurt. The light, and and they've added color and rewarding that when you see it, so that way people go, oh, that was cool, I want to do that. So if
I
you're
used
doing
to have a video of something like that,
yeah,
but I lost it. The computer crashed.
super easy rewards for that. If you're doing a life count game, go, you know what, you respawn automatically, so as soon as you get back to your base, auto respawn. That was a great
Yeah.
rule for that.
It
Or
wasn't
if
during
you're
a battle game. It was just after. They were making fun, taking pictures, just goofing off, and he pretends to get stabbed in the chest. He's like, "Coming," and then he falls flat on his face in the grass.
yeah,
It
well,
was funny.
these rewards are in game, in battle game.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Oh yeah.
Another
But if he had
reward,
done that in battle, okay,
yeah,
be
definitely reward
sure.
them. If it's a life count game, so either life count or life pool, then you'll be like, you know what, you get an extra life. So this death doesn't count against your life total. So if they're playing a life pool game, they don't take one off for the team. If they're doing a life count, then they don't need to count this one. And you basically give them a free respawn for the fact that they seriously hammed it up. And then as an officer or as a reeve, I would make note of who's doing that and how often, and then report that to my provincial and then kingdom officers and be like, look, this person is, doing this, and this way they can track it. And if they see this consistent pattern of this, then awards are incoming. I don't think veils are a thing anymore. Um, Orders of the Veil in my younger years led to Orders of the Mask. So the veil was the minor and the mask was the major. I think now it's just Order of the Mask. And then you
Yeah,
rank up in that to get a serpent. Now, big old question mark. Um,
something like that.
yeah, something like that. Because the rule, it's changed since the mid 90s. Um, and then the version of Amtgard changed, so like it's even a further departure from that old rule set. Um, but yeah, we'll take the last comment from Whoopsie, and then I'll wrap up for the official thing, and then we can just sit and chat. I wish Song of Visit could allow non-singing as a chant for Song of Visit. One should be able also to tell a story or just play instrumental music rather than being required to sing or repeat Song of Visit. If this is allowed and I didn't know, I don't fight a lot anymore. Yeah, I know that in V6 you were allowed to do those things, and I know that I misused it a lot in my youth when I played Bard, and that I would do my Song of Safe Passage, Song of Visit, and I would start singing, and then, I get people used to me. Oh, she's singing. She's in Song of Safe Passage. We're gonna ignore her now. And then, the next live, I would just start singing, and they'd be like, "Oh, she's in Song of Safe Passage." They ignore me, and then I'd kill them. They're like, "We thought you were in Song of Safe Passage," and I was like, and the difference at the time was that in Song of Safe Passage, you couldn't have your weapons like the Monk Sanctuary. You could hold your weapons. Um, and I was like, well, I was holding my weapons, so it's not my fault that just because I was singing, you thought that I was in an effect when in actuality I wasn't. I was just singing because I wanted to. And yeah, that was a little bit cheesy. I will admit, 15-year-old me did not make the best, most honorable decisions. But I know that that was allowed. I do my enchantment and then I would just perform in some way. So a couple times I would dance, sometimes I would recite poetry. I mimed a few times, which was stupid. Um, it looks stupid, not that miming is stupid. I look stupid when I try to mime. But I don't know if since then, now that we're in V8, it's been clarified that you have to chant Song of Visit, and that is to prevent the stuff I was doing, which was misusing the rules, cheesing it to my own ends, and um, basically just kind of cheating within the rules. So
The rulebook says enchant is as follows: an audible component required by some magics and abilities that sustains their continuing function. Under normal circumstances, the player may voluntarily end an ability with an ongoing chant at any time. The audible components of a chant must be spaced no further than 5 seconds apart and audible to 50 feet. Unless otherwise noted, failure to chant ends the effect. May be spoken while moving. Only one chant can be maintained at a time. It doesn't say anything about substituting a chant.
except that you're gonna get some rules lawyers and some reeves that are like, no, it's the chant. It has to be the words of the chant. It can't be replaced with anything else. And so that's that argument. I don't know. I am horribly uninformed when it comes to the rule set. So again, I would push that off to your reeves, your guildmaster reeves. If you have any walkers in the middle in your kingdom, I'd urge you to go to them, or you can seek out my husband, not through me. Find him on Facebook, um, kicking around the CK, and ask him. He's got a really good handle of the rules.
You contact those making the next version and say, hey, can you define this, please?
Yes, as we're rolling into V9, definitely talking to
add that
about, is this something that you guys are thinking about? And if it is, awesome. If it's not, can you put it on your probably very big to-do list? Because it's a lot of work rewriting that rule.
Clarification page or something.
Something.
Because that would be nice. I know somebody. I forget who it was, but it was a bard. He used to sing a more modern song in place of something else. It had to do something with bandages. I forget now. But it was a lot funnier. It was way better.
Okay, and then we'll wrap it up with Whoopsie's comment. We'll kind of close on this one. Is that the bard songs do have a slight variation in this rulebook? The song just has to declare as a similar message to the spell. So if you're using Song of Survival, singing "Staying Alive," or "I Will Survive" or anything like that, will work. But if you ask to clarify, you have to state which song ability that you're actually using. Well, cool. That's my official time